Hi guys, Togger here with a new video, and this video will be best specs to main in 10.0.7 Dragonflight in the form of a tier list. I want to preface this. Again, I'm not going to rate tanks because we are going to talk about PvP, mainly about arenas. In RBGs, you don't really have a lot of choices. It is either Vengeance Demon Hunter or a Guardian Druid. So if you want to main tank in PvP for RBGs, just being Guardian Druid or Vengeance Demon Hunter. And it is also an opinion tier list. I'm going to actually give you my opinion on the classes and specs that there is, and just in general which one I would like to main in 10.0.7, and maybe give you ideas about specs you could main in 10.0.7. Again, we don't know the full changes for 10.0.7, but I will also try to predict the changes that they will come for next patch or in between now and then, and because there will be for sure hot fixes until 10.0.7, which is probably in 1 month time. So we're good to go. Now, again, timestamps where we're going to give class per class, or whenever I'm talking about DKs, there will be written Death Knights. So you can then just jump onto those classes that are maybe interesting for you. And yeah, let's start right away. I'm not going to rate tanks, so I'm going to straight up just put another tier, which is just tank tier, and we're not going to discuss too much about it, except if there is a tank where I'm super excited about. So Death Knight. So we have Frost DK and Unholy DKs. Frost DK got a few changes where their talent trees do make a bit more sense, and they did give like 3 talents baseline: Remorseless Winter, pretty much the obliterate, like killing machine, giving you frost damage instead of just physical damage on obliterates, and frost side. And you have also Might of the Frozen Waste, so the two-hander passive. So that is baseline, which gives you more points to spend. If you want to play a two-hander or dual wield, again, you still have more points to spend, especially if you are like a two-hander Frost DK. I think Frost DK, they are in a spot where they are very close of getting buffs for PvP, because in PvP they are not in a great spot. Now the problem is with Frost DK is they are pretty much a stats machine. Once they get buffed, it can be super obnoxious. And if they just stay like this, it will be like a C tier power level ish tier. But if I'm going to say like who should you main, I would say that Frosty K is pretty much like a B tier, a good spec to main coming into 10.0.7, because they will get more changes. I think they might be having a rework soon. They look exciting to play coming into 10.07 or 10.1 actually. I think they are next in line with Retribution, Enhancement, Shaman and such to get a rework. And they could get a buff somehow, some way down the line, because they didn't get really a lot of buffs coming into Dragonflight. And also in Dragonflight itself, they got like a few percentage buffs of Frost Strike, Obliterate and such. But really, I think they need to change a few interactions outside of Pillar of Frost to make it a super valid spec. The same as Retribution, where Blade of Justice will do some good damage. Now Frost Decay just need that kind of attention for their spec. But I think it's a good spec to main, especially since they are also paired with another good spec, which is Unholy Decay. They do get a few talent positions changed. I think the talents will make more sense. They do lose a few things here and there, but I think it's like only positive. They are on the verge of getting also a rework at one point, because I feel like they are not happy with the current state of Unholy Decay and Frost Decay. They get bug fix or something like a change of Commander of the Dead, so you can actually have a lot of value whenever you're pressing your Dark transformation. I think overall, I'm going to put it also in B tier, which is a good tier. I'm going to write it good because people are not understanding it. B tier is good, so it means you're free to main it. I think it's not the best class to main for now, because Unholy Decay, they were S tier in the majority of the season, and now it got nerfed multiple times. I don't know if they're going to buff it once more, but they are like still trying to change and to make the tier, at least the not the tier, but the spells, the talents more sense, or the builds more sense, and I think that's a good thing. I think if the class or the spec is fun, it's already like 80% of the job done. The 20% is more or less balancing. Well, for example, in Enhancement Shaman, they have so many button bloat that it is not really worth to play too much because it's not super powerful, and they need a rework. And I don't know if they are in line in a rework because they do not get changed in patches. Like, it has been so many patches before we saw a line for Enhancement Shaman alone, and I hope they will change it very soon. But now let's talk about Havoc Demon Hunter. I think Havoc Demon Hunter, with the talent change, position changes, makes it very hard to actually get defensives now. At least you will have to give up a few things, which is alright. I think I've seen the trees for 10.0.7, and it does make you take a different path to get Netherwalk, but I think they will still do that because Netherwalk is so much stronger. It becomes vital to actually survive the second go, and whenever you're surviving the second go, they are not going to survive the second go. So I think having Demon Hunter is a good spec to main as well. It's not really something I would main myself, but I think I can understand why people are attracted to having Demon Hunter, especially how it plays, how dynamic it can be. Not too much button blow. Everything that you're doing is actually meaningful. Again, I think everyone will have the Demon Hunter, like having Demon Hunter or Devastation Evoker, not playstyle, but design, where you only have a few buttons to press to do damage, and outside of that, you don't really have too many button bloats or like filler abilities to actually just press. I think it's a good design from a gaming design like perspective. If you're coming from classic or whatever, you will feel like you'll like playing with less keybinds than before, but it is probably normal because there were a lot of spells like kind of useless, and it is right now getting fixed with Retribution Paladin. For example, Crusader Strike, you can make it a auto attack, which basically just removes one button from your rotation, and I think that's a good thing for a few specs here and there. Now Balanced Druid, I think Balanced Druid are a extremely good spec to main. I'm going to give you some thought process. Elemental Shaman were quite bad, or very bad actually, whenever they don't really have control of lava, dispel protection on their flame shock, because everyone was actually just dispelling their flame shocks, which makes it a bit difficult for them to do lava burst crits, and which makes them actually quite useless on a lot of situations, and their only option was to play with an Affliction Warlock to safeguard their own dots, or a Shadow Priest, but that was less popular before. Now it's a bit better. But with Balanced Druid, it will be the same. Stellar Flare was so easy to just dispel, or at least those Moonfire and Sunfire were so easy to dispel, not punishing at all, that it was like not super worthy to go for a dot based gameplay, except if you were playing with an Affliction Warlock. Now they will change it that you are actually getting starbursted whenever you dispel a Stellar Flare, which makes them actually super scary, because if you're dispelling the wrong thing, again, if he puts 3 dots on you and then he roots you, and he has the PvP talents to make the roots a bit more resistant to breaking out from damage, I think it will be super hard to do a dispel without getting critted or without giving them free astral, because again, whenever you're going to dispel, they will get free astral power, which basically will just make you eat some star surges here and there or starfalls here and there. So I think it's a very good spec right now, very underestimated. Now I got crit for 100k on the star surge, which is a instant cast. I think with the amount of CC you can bring, with the amount of damage you can bring also just with cleave, with dots, I think it will be a very good spec coming into 10.0.7. Feral Druid, for now, no real changes. I think if you want to main Feral Druid, you are probably maining right now. It's a good spec to main. I think there is no change and for 10.7. They did so many changes for Feral Druid. Now they want to probably see where it is going. I think it is a very specific spec to main. If you are a specialist on Feral Druid, you are probably not going to say, oh look, this healers will convince me for playing Feral Druids again. That's not going to be the case. You're probably going to play Feral Druid most of the time, even whenever it's bad, even whenever it's going to be OP. And it is a very specialized spec. And yes, there was a moment where it's a flavor of the month, but again, only the real ones are still playing Feral Druid, because it's a very specific spec. You don't really have a lot of comps to play in 3s. In 2s, you might be very strong, but 2s is a bit of a dead bracket right now. And in Soul Shuffle, again, you need to love how to play a Feral Druid before you actually start grinding Feral Druid. For me, B tier, it's still a good spec to main, but I think Baron's Druid is just a bit better right now, at least on the perspective on having Stellar Flare being 80 spell protection dot, which is actually awesome. Garden Druid is a tank. Resto Druid, I think there is a few things that they changed to make it a bit more aggressive, but they did lose a lot of paths to go for passive healing and better healing overall. I think they got still nerfed on that. And I think they could still get changed, but I would like to see healers just in general have the Disc Priest treatment, which basically give incentive to healers to do damage so they can be more popular. Why is Disc Priest so popular? You're not going to tell me that shielding people is fun. What is fun is actually blasting people while you are doing shields. I think if Resto Druid or anything else actually had the same gameplay, not the same gameplay, but the same design where you could just heal, and then whenever you want to blast, Raf, Star Search, whatever, Rip, Rake, whatever, everything you can do to do damage and participate in kills, I think that will make it popular. That's why Fist Weaving at the moment is booming. A lot of people are actually playing Fist Weaving, and to be honest, I want to also play Fist Weaving right now. I want to do a 0-2 hero, and I think in general, I think Resto Druid, if they do get that treatment in 10.0.7, it might be better. I think right now it is a good spec to main because it's still one of the best healers out there. But they need some kind of push into the I want to participate in kills. I want to participate in the success of the team. Right now, if your DPS sucks, you're pretty much just there to heal, and if they're ultimately going to die because of dampening, it is what it is. So I think for now it's still a good spec, but if they get more changes, because they got like their deep drought back, I want them to actually buff damage from Resto Druid, so you can actually participate with damage and be rewarded with some kills like a Disc Priest could do on some DPS. Again, there is always a reason why people are playing. It's because of either it is fun to play or it is OP. I think Disc Priest is in a category where both of them are actually meshing together. While, for example, Preservation Evoker, Resto Druids, they're all good healers, but they're less played right now because the possibilities to do damage is very limited. And still, Preservation Evoker has that too, but I think people are like trying to they are caught in catching them up in how to counter a Preservation Evoker. So especially with Purge teams, they're getting wrecked versus them. Devastation Evoker, I think it's still for me. It's still going to be a C tier spec to main. I only talk about the fanciness or the funness of the gameplay, right? I think Devastation Evoker is strong in their own regards. It still can one shot. It still can do a lot of damage. They have tools that some classes don't. They have also tools that they don't have that other classes has. So for me, Devastation Evoker is a solid C. I would say not really great. It's not on B tier level for me. It has too little buttons. It's not as interesting to play, I think, in my opinion. Yes, one-shotting is fun, but so you can do that with any other class, to be honest. So they do need some, I don't really like the design of Devastation Evoker, but if you like it, just continue it, of course. But I won't main a Devastation Evoker, or at least I'm pretty sure I'm not going to main one. Preservation Evoker, I think, again, I think it's a A tier spec to main because they do want Preservation to be strong. They still buff it in some way, somehow. They try to make it good. I think they do suffer a lot from dispel teams, but a lot of classes actually like suffer from them. I think Preservation Evoker is in between Disc Priest and Resto Druid, where they can play aggressive, although it's like not super overwhelming. You do have tools to actually participate with kills. If you're playing versus Resto Druid and you're doing a Fire Breath with the PvP talent, you're going to dispel everything, and that will set back the Resto Druid super hard. And you have ways to actually win games by yourself. but it's not like a disc priest level of thing where disc priest can literally 100 to 0 someone if they are not paying attention. So for me, it is the 8 tier spec to main. I think if I had to play Evoker, I would play Preservation probably. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really super interested in healing as a evoker. But if I had to, I think it would be a good class to main. It could be B tier as well, but I'm going to put A tier because I have to put some separation between Resto Druid and Preservation Evoker. BM Hunter is for me a S tier spec to main right now. I think they are dodging a lot of nerfs. A lot of nerfs actually. I think people don't realize how strong it is. It's not because of the legendary bow, because again they nerfed that and it didn't change anything. It's still the overwhelming strength of the pets and your barb shot and kill command doing sometimes 100k per kill command. I'm even doing 150k if I have like all the stars aligning with my double trinkets and such. I can do some big damage. People are like suffering from it. You can play like an execute build where your kill command will do more damage whenever they are low HP, or you can play more of a consistent damage build where you have 2 kill commands at all times, pretty much. I think they are a fantastic spec to play. They are very strong. They're dodging nerfs. I think they might have a talent rework going on because again you don't really have a lot of choices. That's the only. I'm going to put in A tier just because of that. Like talent builds, you don't really have a lot of choices. You pretty much are like sucked into the middle tree and then go a bit on the left for the dire beasts. But the right side where you have Call of the Wild is just not usable because you have a lot of PvE talents here and there, which are not even PvE talents because Cobra Shot is just not worthy to press at the moment. The damage is so low that it's not worth it. So for me, BM Hunter, 8 tier spec. I try to main BM Hunter. I'm like enjoying Hunter really a lot at this time because I like the freedom it gives in PvP. But as in general, I think it's a fantastic thing to play. So I recommend everyone to play Hunter. And I'm going to say Survivor Hunter is on the same level. They also lack the build diversity. That's why for me it's A tier. If you don't have a lot of build variety, it can't be S tier. S tier should be like you're playing one spec and you can play multiple facets of that spec. BM Hunter, Survival Hunter don't have that. Survival Hunter has the particularity of being like melee ranged-ish character where you can be very melee, and then at one point you're going to be kiting people, you're going to throw bombs, you're going to do mongoose bites from afar and do a lot of damage because of your force set. It's fun, dynamic, you can like jungle people with your harpoon, going in, trapping people, stunning people, CCing people. Again, do your job as a survival hunter and have a lot of fun. I think it is a worthy spec to main, although it's not very popular in some way in World of Warcraft. I think they do deserve some love with the actual design. They have again lack of diversity on the builds side of things, but you can make it work, and they might still change a few things on Hunter because they are active on the Hunter side of classes and specs. Hunter, I think they're a good spec to main because they will get changed. If I have to think about right now, it could be C tier or D tier. I have fun with it, but I know that it's very limited, especially on the build side of things. They are easily stopped. You don't have a lot of tools. It's like a BM Hunter, but more risky. Of course, you have the one-shot potentials, but once you are like in a certain MMR range, they are not going to let you one-shot people because they know if you're free casting, you're going to do too much damage, so they have to train you, and whenever you are trained, it's a lot difficult to actually place the damage that you want to place. Although it's not as hard as a caster because you don't really have a cast. You have a cast time, but it's not stoppable because of a kick. So yeah, I think it's a B tier because they are on the verge of getting like a town rework or something to actually make it a bit more interesting to play. So I do have hope for Hunter to be a very good class to main. So I would recommend everyone to take a look into Hunter. Arcane Mage. Now, from what I've heard from multiple mage mains, is that the arcane talents are quite garbage to a point where you only have one certain playstyle and you're a bit shoehorned into doing one big burst rotation, and then maybe look for an execute, and that's it. It plays like a fire mage, really. I'm going to say that it's a B tier spec to main. I'm not really super interested in Arcane. I was never super interested in Arcane, to be honest. I think it's like a less cool fire mage, to be honest. I think Fire Mage has its flaws because I preferred the Cataclysm one with Combust and Ignite actually do insane amount of damage on that side of things. But I think if I have to judge mages, I would say Arcane is B tier. They might get changed, but I don't think so. Fire Mage would be also B tier ahead of Arcane, and I would say Frost Mages would be A tier. Why Fire Mage B tier? Because I think they are on the verge of getting again buffed. They are very terrible in PvE, so they are still going to be targeted with buffs in PvE and probably also in PvP. They have some certain playstyles where they could just be a machine gun doing your power blast, but you do get countered by a few classes like a Warlock doing a Curse of Weakness on you. You should notice directly and try to just decurse yourself. If you're not doing that, you're going to get ruined. I think that there is a certain charm towards Fire Mage, and if I had to play Mage, which I'm trying, but I don't really have a lot of time, I would play Frost or Fire. And why Frost 80? I think it's a fantastic spec. They have multiple builds you can do for a glacial spike build. You can do some kind of kamikaze build where you straight up go like in melee range, try to stun them with the AoE stun from a PvP talents, and then like throw ice lances and with your frozen orb do insane amount of damage and actually kill healers just with the one go that they don't really want to trinket at the first. And if they do trinket, you just polymorph the healer afterwards and you're good. You can just kill the DPS now. So there is ways to play Frost Mages, and I think just because of that, they deserve the A tier because they have a lot of variety, while, for example, Fire and Arcane don't really have a lot of variety. Although Arcane is very strong, I'm not saying that it's weak. This is not a power level tier list, it is pretty much a tier list of what is fun to play and in conjunction with their power and in the perspective of the future, is it going to get nerfed or not? Is it going to be buffed or not? One thing is for sure, I think Mistweavers are going to be S tier spec to main coming into 10.0.7. They do really want it to be competitive. The caster form of Mistweaving and the fist weaving side of things of Mistweaver. So you have two clear builds you can play, which is pretty much you're going to kick and like punch people to actually heal your allies with like blackout kicks and rising sun kicks and whatever you can actually cast, like revival, restore, or whatever. You have a lot of ways to actually like play the game. If you're playing with casters, just stand back and heal because they're not going to kick you. If they're kicking you, then this Warlock will just do Chaos Bots. And if the Chaos Bot is kicked, you are free range into healing City. So I think it's a great spec to main because Blizzard really wants it to be competitive. Like I think since the start of like Dragonflight, except in the beginning where they did nerf the mana. They're still trying to up the healing throughput, and I think at one point it will be busted, and I think they are not ready to nerf it yet. So it's a very safe spec to main if you want to main a healer that is also very active, like a Disc Priest. With a fist weaving build, you can really do a lot of damage, and you participate in kills also most of the time. That's maybe the only tank I'm going to put in C tier, because for some reason it is good. It's really the only tank though. In arenas you can make it work. You have to have a specific team in trees though if you want to make it work in trees. And in solo shuffle again, I don't know how he became that high, the Brewmaster's main, but if you want to make it work, it should be possible. I think it's a tanky Windwalker basically. But if you want to have fun, I think it is the tank that is the most likely to have success in arenas, in social fall or in trees. So if you want to play a tank, just play this. I guess it's very obnoxious to play, so I'm not really happy to play against. But as a caster, I do have an easier time versus them than let's say a physical damage dealer. Windwalker. So for me, Windwalker is in a special spot. I think they are on the verge of getting buffs because they do want consistent damage to be very high. They still nerf like the burst damage from Windwalkers, but at one point I think having a lot of consistent damage will make you be super lethal at all times, and you might just not play as a stability rogue anymore and more like a warrior slash very mobile rogue. With the TPs, and you can TP whenever to actually juke people. You have ways to again die, but I think it's a very skillful spec to play. It's a spec that you can have a lot of fun mastering, and okay, build variety, you don't really have that. That's why it's A tier. If it had build variety, it might be S tier. So pretty much you have only one playstyle, but you can make it work and you can have a lot of fun with it. So for me, Monk in general is going to be a very good class to main going into 10.0.7. I would 100% recommend it. I'm going to talk about Retribution first. Guys, Retribution is S tier material to main. Guys, I'm going to main one. I don't care. I'm going to be like a sheep. Everyone is going to reroll Paladin. I'm going to be there. Let me get that fun. I wanted to have fun with Retribution. I think they have so many great things going on the PTR. Everything single change is actually making me super excited to play. They have build variety now. You have actual choices to make on the talent tree, which is awesome. I wish multiple classes had the same love that they got from 10.0.7. But like I said in the beginning of Dragonflight, even before Dragonflight, I said whenever I was reviewing the talents that they were 100% going to get a rework, and I am super right. If I can find the video, I'm going to put in the description so you can actually trust my sense of prediction, because I said at the start they are next in line for a rework, because it is impossible they're going to let it slide like this and just be how it is for whole of Dragonflight. That's impossible. I think they do deserve a rework. I think there are multiple classes and multiple specs that do need a rework, like Enhancement Shaman. I would even say arguably Affliction Warlock. Affliction Warlock has a design where it's basically bust or die. They are either OP or they are like just drain life machine, tank machine, and they're just there to survive until their allies actually kill people. They're not very scary to dispel anymore. They're stoppable if you know what to do versus an Affliction Warlock. Of course, teams that don't know how to play versus an Affliction Warlock, they're going to get decimated. But pretty much, if your healer knows what he does and he's not a Disc Priest, because Disc Priest is the only one that is actually struggling versus them, a Mistweaver has an easy time versus them, for example. So I don't know. That's a little rant I had for Affliction. Unfortunately, I want it to go back to Cataclysm, man. Cataclysm or Wrath of the Lich King or whatever. Just a spec design that is making sense for Affliction. Alright, let's talk about Holy Paladin. I think Holy Paladin is also very interesting to main. I'm going to put it in B tier, but be on the lookout. I think they are very close to getting a big rework, and I think the more reworks we have, the better, because there are a few specs that are not really coherent, and they did change a lot of about Holy Paladin in 10.0.5 that actually ruined a bit spec, but people are finding ways to actually play it. They are actually adapting, and you have ways to have influence in the game. I think they should just add Blessing of Spell Warding, so basically that you have a Bob version for casters, and that would make the class a lot better. Right now you're very good versus physical, but anything caster wise you're going to get blasted, or your allies is going to get blasted, and at one point you will have to bubble or bubble sacrifice or whatever, and you're going to die like because of a because of a polymorph or a fear. Like they are the only class, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that they don't really have a defense versus a kick, like versus a CC. A Mistweaver can basically just TP out of line of sight, or they can even revival them, so they are immune of magic effects. Resto Shaman has Grounding Totem, has Wind Shear, which is a kick from afar, while for example Paladin has to walk up to the main to actually kick, which is not going to happen. A Priest can death like polymorphs. They can outplay polymorphs, right? I'm thinking Resto Druids, basically they can shapeshift polymorphs. They can cyclone again if they are having a lot of haste. They can maybe cyclone before they get polymorphs. So you have ways to outplay, but the only class that doesn't really have a way to outplay is Holy Paladin. And I think they should have a way where they could have some skill usage to actually escape CC, except lining. But you cannot line if you are actually like always close to your allies to actually heal, because mastery is basically that. And unfortunately, mastery is really a bad stat for paladins. It's either going to be OP like in Shadowlands with the double legendaries, or it is going to be super sad to play and you want to play haste and crit, which is good, but it makes it like again a bit filthy to have a bit of mastery which is not usable if you're playing from afar. So again, B tier as a whole. Protection Paladin, again, tank. Disc Priest, I think it is a spec that is untouched for now. People are going to be super mad if they get nerfed, because it's one of the specs that is actually fun to play. And I think Disc Priest is a S tier spec to main. Although I'm not really one that is going to main a Disc Priest, because I don't like to play with multiple people that is also playing Disc Priest. They do try to not make you mirror match in Soul Shuffle, but it can happen that two Disc Priests is facing each other, and that's a miserable experience, because again, it's not fun to play mirror matches in general. And in general, I think I prefer Mistweaver. And they are not going to get nerfed. I think this priest, or if they're getting nerfed, probably on the damage proportions of the class or the spec. Um, but as a whole, they are actually very fun to play. They do a lot of damage. They do a lot of healing. They have damage reduction, which is super good in dampening like not dampening metas, but in dampening like high dampening games, like for example in Soul Shuffle or in trees where it can actually ramp up quite fast. Um, I think it's a very good spec. I think people like healers should try to have like fist weaving and disc priest like shadow weaving damage and such. That you should have that as well, so they can actually have some skill expression in killing people. And that's maybe something that Holy Priest lacks. I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not really a class that I'm very, very fond of. They still need a lot of love to actually become better. I feel like Shadowlands, the remove, like the transition from Shadowlands to Dragonflight has been one of the worst things for that healer, because they did lose Kyrian Covenant, which is basically their possibility to kill people and do healing with their damage that they are actually doing. That being gone made them actually a lot less lethal, a lot less scary to face. Right now, if you're facing a Holy Priest, you know that they are either going to hardcast a lot of things, or they're going to get CC'd, or they're pretty much like just someone that you're going to switch whenever they don't have CDs. So I think Holy Priest is not as strong, and I hope they get buffed. But for now, on the horizon, they don't seem to have a lot of changes going on for them. I would maybe buff Holy Fire and Smite damage for Holy Priest, make a few changes on the talents section, like position wise, and make it easier for them to actually have some good talents versus right now where they have to sacrifice a lot of good talents to go for the okay talents. So for me, it's going to be a C tier spec. Shadow Priest is still going to be a B tier spec for me. It's good to main. I think they are. Problem is, they were S tier for a majority of the season. They got nerfed a few times, and it did feel the nerf, and also it just is a highly tradable target. You have ways to actually win games because of CC, but that has been something that is age old. It always has been like this. Um, I don't know what it can do to make it fun to play against, because often than not, if it's OP, it becomes just unfun and it will eat nerfs. And there are multiple specs where it's just fun to play versus, although it's very strong. Like for example, I like to play versus a arms warrior. I know I'm an arms warrior main, so I'm very biased, but I do love to play versus an arms warrior whenever I'm in destruction mode, because I know that I have a few ways to actually counter it. Although they can eat me alive if I'm not doing that. Um, well, for example, versus Shadow Priest, it always feels miserable whenever your allies is getting CC'd instantly and you don't have anything to actually stop that. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be B tier. Still a very good class to main. I don't think they will get a lot of buffs, and they might eat a nerf or two on the CC front to keep it in line with Assassination Rogues. Assassination Rogues, I think I'm going to predict they're going to get destroyed next patch. So the next patch where you will see Assassination Rogues like on the hotfix or a patch note, it is going to get destroyed somehow, some way. I'm going to put it in C tier. It is strong, very, very, very strong. Again, this is not a power level spec, but I feel like they're going to get destroyed on the damage proportions or the utility proportions or the debuff proportions with mind numbing and the 4 poisons. I think they will do something to destroy the build, because it has been a whole season of Assassination Rogue being on top, and I think the next patch, at least 10.0.7, they will kill Assassination Rogues to have a next meta for the AWC very soon. I think it's also very strong in PvE, so I think that they will have the temptation to actually destroy the spec to open up to a different meta, and that's going to happen. I think I'm going to bet that it is going to be a C tier. If it's unchanged, guys, if in 10.7 it doesn't get changed, it is an A tier spec to main or S tier spec to main. But I'm predicting that it's going to get changed and going to get heavily nerfed. People are going to re-roll instantly once it actually happens. So for me, it's a C tier spec. Outlaw Rogue, I'm going to put it in. I'm going to put it in B tier because there is a possibility where they're going to get buffed. In PvP at least. In PvE, problem is Outlaw Rogues and Subtlety Rogues are doing extremely good. So they are actually on the verge of getting a nerf because PvE is doing good. Now, I hope they put a line next to the nerf with it's not valid for PvP or it doesn't apply to PvP combat. That would be nice. But I think they will eat a nerf on PvE and it will be a collateral damage towards PvP. And I hope PvP will get like something that is going to change their damage. I think Pistol Shot may be a buff here or there. Maybe Sinister Strike or Ambush getting a buff could be nice as well. Dispatch maybe, but it's very hard to actually buff Outlaw without it making OP. I think Kidney Shot is really a problem, and I think the solution is to nerf Kidney Shot to give it back into the damage proportions on those classes like Assassination Rogue, Outlaw, and Subtlety. But we will see. Depends. Subtlety Rogue is going to be B tier as well for the same reason. They are very good in PvE and they might be nerfed again because of PvE. I think PvP wise, you have ways to have fun with a Subtlety Rogue. I think it's the same as a Feral Druid. Basically, you're going to play a class, a spec, and you're going to be a specialized one with Subtlety Rogue. I think Subtlety Rogue's mains are still going to be Subtlety because they do like Subtlety. That's the main thing. I think for me, it's going to be a B tier spec to main. I might try it out someday. I never played Subtlety. So that might be very fun to watch for my viewers, but for now I'm not really into Subtlety Rogue, or at least rogues in general. Elemental Shaman. Now, that's also a prediction, but I'm going to say that it's going to get destroyed next patch, man. I think next patch, Elemental Shaman is going to get destroyed somehow, some way. People are complaining way too hard on them. They're either going to give a flat nerf to Earthshock, or they're going to give a flat nerf to Stormkeepers, or they're going to give a flat nerf to Lava Burst. At that point, I think Elemental Shaman will not be as competitive as before. They have still ways where they can be very disruptive though, and they have comps to actually be very disruptive, but they will just nerf the fact that it is very strong right now. Maybe defensive wise, they will give a buff, because that's still something that they do lack. But offensively, they're going to probably get a hit. Like, no way Assassination Rogues and Elemental Shamans is going to stay like this. I'm going to put it in B tier, sorry, because I think if they get nerfed, they're not going to get destroyed like an Assassination Rogue. They might get destroyed, but not on the level of an Assassination Rogue. I think the outcry for Assassination Rogue is way too big to let it fly, while, for example, Elemental Shaman, it has clear weaknesses, but also clear strengths where they can just one-shot people, one-tap people with the right class, with the right combination of classes. So yeah, I think it's still a good spec to main. Out of all the Shaman specs, I think Elemental Shaman is probably the safest. And I want to say Enhancement Shaman right now, it's a D tier spec, man. To main, fun-wise, it is fun at times, but Doom Winds is a 1.5 minute CD on an 8-second duration, which is insane because one disarm just ruins it for you, or one stun into a fear, whatever. So basically, you don't really have a lot of uptime. Ascendance procs are very random if you're playing with deeply rooted elements. You can also play with the Ascendance like talent, which gives you a 3 minutes go. But the problem is 3 minutes is very long for a go, man. It's like there is a lot of classes that have 3 minute goes, but they get CD reduction, like cooldown reduction on their spells or whatever. Like for example, I don't know, Elemental Shaman has the Fire Elemental, but it is reduced because of Flame Shock, for example. Or you have Balanced Druid having scenario alignments, but a lot sooner. They have Retribution now with 1 minute wings on PTR. Uh, I can tell you about any class. Like for example, even Shadow Priest, they have a 1 minute go that they can even go lower with a PvP talent whenever they get hits. I don't know, Frost Mages, Icy Veins, you get procs just doing nothing. You get procs, you get a time warp, or you get a Icy Veins, which is both very good for them. I don't know, man. BM Hunters, they have like Bestial Rafts every 45 seconds. Enhancement Shaman is just too damn annoying to maneuver as a class and a spec that they need to rework it from the ground up. They have to raise everything from Enhancement Shaman and just build block per block again to make it sense. If you want to make an RNG class, make it as the RNG is super good. Because if it's not good, it is just the state where we are right now, where one big RNG is going to kill someone, or you don't get any RNG and you are the one getting killed all the time, and that's what happens. So for me, D tier, unfortunately, I don't see them change anything in 10.0.7. Maybe in 10.1, but for now, I have like no faith in Enhancement Shaman developers. I think they have like a whole season and even before to actually change something about Enhance, and they didn't do that. In PvE, it is strong. Unfortunately, if it was weak, maybe they would change it. But right now, you have multiple builds, but all those builds are button bloat builds, which basically gives you too many things to press with little reward. While, for example, a lot of specs are actually pressing 2 or 3 buttons with the same effect. So I think Enhancement Shaman, they are struggling, guys, struggling. Resto Shaman is for me a tier spec to main healing wise. You have damage, you have ways to do damage, you have healing, which is instant but also casted. You have totems that actually also can heal. They are buffing healing tide to a point where you will have healing tide more often and for better amounts of healing. I think in general it is a fantastic spec to play. You will have buffs coming in. I think they are trying to change the playstyle from Resto Shamans to be more of a casted spec with totems that is going to give you a lot of healing. But now we will have to see if they're going to succeed in that, because it's always stats. If the stats are correct, Resto Shaman is going to be an extremely good healer. If the stats are not correct and the healing throughput is bad, it is going to be a D tier spec, C tier spec, B tier spec, but they're not going to be meta. But right now, my prediction is it is very fun to play. It is going to be better with buffs incoming for the PTR, and I think in general, it's still the same playstyle as the Disc Priest. You have possibilities to do damage. Now, Disc Priest has a bit better of that, so I think if they actually tweak a few things, like for example take a bit of power from Stormkeepers and put it back on Lava Burst or Lightning Bolt, it could be a lot interesting to play around that, but we'll see what they can do with Resto Shamans. Affliction Warlock, I love Affliction Warlock, and they have a lot of changes on PTR. I have a bit of faith, that's why I'm going to put on C tier, but they have to rework it, man. They have to rework it. I think they are at some point in the expansion where they cannot have Affliction Warlock be OP at season 1 nor season 2. And I'm not really asking to be OP, but I think it is just not fun to be only reliable whenever the stats and the numbers are correct. You don't really have any redeemable factors except that dispel protection, which people often just ignore it, and a good healer just dispels everything that you are going to cast instantly. Instead of just waiting for you to ramp up, they can just dispel every time you're going to put a dot, and you're done. People are going to stop you from casting, you're going to get stunned, feared, kicked, and again, you're going to be just a drain life bot where you pretty much just count on your second ally to kill someone instead of you. There's something they have to change. Maybe give it a Shadow Priest treatment where their dots are going to ramp up and give you more damage or spread damage. Well, Malefic Rupture is one of those spells that I really detest since a long time. Since the implementation of that spell, it just is an abomination of a spell. Just makes it too much power into AoE instead of just single target, and that makes it that if it's OP, it's going to kill like 3 people at the same time, and whenever it's not OP, you're not going to even scare one guy with dots. They're just going to ignore you. So it's at that point that Affliction Warlock has some struggles, and I have a little faith for Affliction because they do need their full rework, and they already did it with Retribution Paladin. I don't know if they have time for Affliction Warlock, but they should try to give a bit more incentive towards that spec. Demology Warlock, I have faith into them. I think they are actually changing a lot of things towards Demology Warlock. I'm going to put it in B tier because there is still no real, how it's called? There is no real incentive to go for a Demon Bolt build. I would like to see them give you an option where you want to have a big Tyrant, or a Pit Lord, or a big Felguard, or you make yourself big. Try to give a spell where you're trying to fusion with the demon like a Felguard, and you're going to be like the big boss Felguard yourself, and you're smacking people. That would be insane. Like, imagine a Demology Warlock. You have your Felguard, you press a button, which is a 3-minute CD, I don't care, and you're going to fusion with that demon, and for 30 seconds you're the demon and you're going to smack people in the face with just melees. It's like a demon hunter, but basically you're going to be insane for 30 seconds. You're going to do damage, you're going to be feeling good because it's going to be like a melee class at that moment. You'll have more armor, more health, whatever, and that would be insane. I don't know how they cannot make a spec coherent in the game like Demology Warlock. It would be insane to have either you have a big Tyrant, either you have a big Felguard, or you become the effing Felguard, right? You just fusion with him and you're going to smack people. I don't know, man. I think that idea would be insane, but I don't know if they're going to put it in 10.0.7. But I think it's a good spec to main because they do buff Tyrants. Now they just need to do bug fixes for Tyrants. But if they actually manage to make it like a bit more smart, it could be a very interesting spec to play for people that do like summons or pets. But please, Blizzard, if you watch this video, give us a fusion with the Felguard or fusion with Demon. I don't care, man. If you do a fusion with Felhunter, you are like the interrupt machine or something. Something fun, man. Make it fun. It's a game. It's a game. Make it fun. Just make it possible to fusion with your pets, and you have other abilities. Every ability you on your bar is actually switching into a Felguard machine. You have Fellstorm, you have Guillotine, you have everything, but you are yourself the Felguard. That would be insane. Like, for example, BM Hunter, make us fuse with the pets. That would be insane. That would be super fun to do, but I don't think they're going to do that. It's also, I don't know if it's making sense in a Warcraft universe, but imagine if that idea would be in live. I would play every day Demology Warlock because it would be fun. And right now you're just like a pet machine, or you have like the other pet machine, and your demon balls are actually very laughable. So yeah, I mean, and again, let's see what they are going to do. I'm excited for maybe the future if they actually just do one idea of mine. That would be actually lit. But let's talk about Destruction Warlock. I think Destruction Warlock is a S tier spec to main, and I'm super biased, and I don't care. I think it's one of the best designs specs out there. It might be super frustrating for the people that are actually playing since Warthog or since TBC or since Vanilla, because it is true that Chaos Vault was that super menacing spell to press, and it has a CD, and it goes through immunities and goes through like everything. Actually, just do the damage that is written, and then you have incidents doing super like a lot of damage, which is now the case. The conflag was super scary as well. You had a lot of ways to actually be scary, like your Shadow Fury actually did a lot of damage. Right now it does no damage, it's not instant. So the playstyle has changed, but I think it's still one of the better casters in the game. You have instant cast doing a lot of damage. You have casted abilities like Incinerate and Chaos Bolt doing a lot of energy. You can do a cheesy build with Soulfire. Again, a longer cast, but do insane amount of damage if it crits. It can crit for 200k, which is half of the HP of someone. And remember, you still have Conflag and Shadowburns to actually finish off targets. You can play multiple builds, and of course, not all builds are equal, but you can actually change those builds up. You can play an Infernal build, although I would like to see them move away from Infernals to like it's too much right now. It would be nice if it's like moving away and just become something else. But I guess since Infernals are there, just play with Infernals. You can play more of a Chaos Bolt build, you can play more of a Soulfire build, you can do Conflags, you can Shadow Burn, you can go for a Mastery build or Haste build. I think there's multiple things that are actually very awesome for Destruction Warlock, and I'm very excited for that. And in 10.0.7 they do get buffs again because they got changes on the class tree, which is actually super beneficial for you because Drain Life is like is a non-factor. You get replacements for that, more damage for Immolate, more damage for Incinerate, which is actually very good. So I'm excited to play Destruction again. We're pushing for Crimson Legend. If we can do that, if we cannot, then at least I tried, and that would be very awesome to do. So I recommend everyone to play Destruction Warlock. I know it's very frustrating to get trained all the time, but I think it has its positives because if you're trained, you're more in control in how you die. Instead of someone that is actually not pressing CDs or not using their mobility, at least you are in control of that, and that's what I like about Destruction Warlock. So, Arms Warrior, Fury Warrior, Protection Warrior, just in tank tier. So, everyone knows me as a Arms Warrior, Fury Warrior, like just Warrior main. Like, people can say that I am a Warrior YouTuber, but pretty much I'm a multi-classer. I think everyone knows that right now. I make guides about all the specs I'm playing, to be honest, where I feel like I can give some value to people. And I like Arms, I like Fury. I think in 10.7 you don't really have a lot of changes. I think they will not do too much changes for Warriors. I think they are fine. And I think they are fine too. So that's why I'm going to put it in A tier to main, while Fury is going to be a C tier spec. I'm going to explain right now why. Arms Warrior is just a spec that is coherent. It works. It has multiple builds, variety actually. That's why it's A tier instead of B tier. It has ways to actually deal with a lot of classes. Ignore Pain being back is something that is going to be very valuable just on the long run. They have damage, they have disruption, they can be very tanky at times versus specific specs, but they can also be very squishy. I think design of an Arms Warrior is super good because again every spell you're going to press is very meaningful. Overpower doing a lot of damage, but also improving your more strike doing a lot of damage because it has also mortal wound. It has colossus smash, which is a lot of damage, but also improving your own damage. Anger management, actually reducing the CDs on those important spells like Blade Storm and Colossus Smash. Avatar being so nice to press, the same as Fury, but I think it's better on a Arms Warrior as well. You have ways to actually have a lot of fun as a Arms Warrior. And you have also multiple builds. You can go for a full crit build, which is the meta build. You can also go for a full haste build and play around that. A full mastery build if you want to play around that. That's fantastic for any class. I think like Arms is just good. I don't think they will eat a nerf. Again, I think they're more close to a buff than a nerf, depending on situations again. But I don't think they will be changing to 10.7. That's why it's a safe spec to play, a safe spec to main. While, for example, Fury, I have little faith. I think they need to rework the talents from the ground up. They kind of showhorned you into a way where you have to play bleeds or you have to play with like crushing blow does do a lot of damage, but let's be honest, even though I hate bloodbath, I think bloodbath with bleeds is probably the most coherent build you can play if you want to have a lot of success, although I don't really like that build. And slaughterhouse, how it is right now, not stackable, while playing with a mortal wound class, for example, pet build like for a pet like for example BM hunter or survival hunter or even an MM hunter or demology warlock, you can't even stack it, so it makes like obsolete. So I don't know. I think they are not going to get changed, and if they do, I have little faith towards it because they don't want to repeat Shadowlands Season 3 or right now Season 1. In the beginning of Dragonflight, Fury Warrior were very good, and they got nerfed multiple times, and now it is just not that great. So this is my tier list for the specs I would like to main coming into 10.0.7. Again, everything B and above is very interesting to play. I would recommend personally to play Paladin, Monk, Disc Priest if you want to play a healer. I would say Destruction Warlock if you want to play a caster. If you want to play a melee, I would recommend Windwalker or Arms Warrior. If you want to play a hunter, it's one of the best classes to main because you have like literally 3 specs that are actually interesting to play. If you want to play a setup spec, I think Balance Druid is fantastic, and they have a lot of interesting builds to play around. I think Frost Mage is also quite nice as well, though you're going to get trained, but you will have a lot of fun with it. Healing wise, I think Preservation, Evoker, Restore Shaman, Mistweaver, like the Fist Weaving one, and the Disc Priest are both all 4 great specs to main. Holy Paladin is the outsider. It could be very interesting to play out as well, depending on the reworks that are going to get. Rogue-wise, I think Subtlety Rogue is probably the one that you want to main coming into 10.7 because they are more likely to not get nerfed. While, for example, Assassination Rogue is going to get destroyed, probably. Demology Warlock, again, like I said, looks interesting. DKs are still a very safe pets to go for because they do want it strong and they're not going to nerf Frost DK, for example, so you can sense maybe a way where Frost DK will be relevant. Having Demon Hunter, if you want to play a feel-good spec, I would recommend having Demon Hunter, although they are again on the verge of getting nerfed because they are obnoxious at points and at times. So I don't think they are like trying to swim under the radar. And this is pretty much my tier list, right? Again, it's not a power tier list. It's not like, look, those are the specs that are going to be super strong in 10.7. It's more or less like, do you want to have fun and less likeliness of getting nerfed? Those are the specs that are going to be interesting. So this is my tier list. Please let me know what you think about this video. Please let me know again if that video helps you decide your next mains. And we will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.